All right, all right, all right. Welcome in. This is Toilets to Titles, episode number 103. This is week 18 of the NFL season and is officially the first episode of the third off season for the Toilets to Titles show. So we are happy to be here. I have a few guests with me this evening. First, Joe from Joe Knows. You know him at JoeJ_Clark, a member of the Toilets to Titles crew. Joe, what's happening?
Life is great, except my dog Melvin just decided right before we came on the show to come up and just look at me and start whining and wanting attention. And so I'm going to go on mute. But hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with John and to pick his brain. John Laub, that is.
Yeah, the other John, not your cousin John.
Nothing against Coach Chefs at all.
Right.
Pick both fans. But
well,
got
if
the
you're
specialist
listening
here.
at home and you're not watching, then you don't know that we have another guest. And it's an excellent guest to bring on for the Dynasty off season because there really is no off season. You always need to be prepping, and this guy is constantly prepping. He knows all the college players. He's playing in college fantasy football leagues. This guy is a fountain of knowledge, and that's the Gridiron Scholar himself at Gridiron Scholar 91, John Laub. John, what is happening?
Hey, man, Happy New Year, everyone. I had about 7 days of relaxation, and then I realized it's draft season. The Senior Bowl is about 21 days away, and that's the third step of my 5-step process. The first one is watching film in the summer, so I've been watching Sam Howell, Treylon Burks, all of the top prospects last summer. Then I watch the prospects as much as I humanly can, record games throughout the college football season, take notes. Now I've built my model. I put in the statistics, except for the young players at Georgia and Alabama, because we got to wait for final numbers on a few prospects there. But everyone else is in my model. And now it's the Senior Bowl is the next step. I mean, when the young men arrive in Mobile, Alabama, there's all types of audio. There's all types of film. People tweet practice videos, NFL Network, and then I watch the game. And then it's on to the combine. I mean, it's a process. I'm at the step 3, and I'm excited, but it comes so fast, my friends.
Yes. Yeah. So we were thinking about going to the Senior Bowl this year, and some things popped up, but Justin started kind of networking. So I think next year it's going to be the year when we get a crew down there, and I'm really excited for that, man. I love the Senior Bowl, and the Senior Bowl is huge because every year there are names that fly up. When you see these guys, like I'm going to bring up Kareem Hunt. He was playing at Toledo. He had big numbers, but you really didn't get to see him against the top skill level. And then you saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I believe he won Senior Bowl MVP, and he got on everybody's radar, and it's true. So when you watch some film, you watch some highlights, you can't, some of what you watch in the college game of these players, it's not necessarily true because they're doing it against poor talent, or maybe they have tremendous talent around them, so it's opening up gaping holes, whatever, which you see a lot from the Oregon running backs over the past decade or so. These guys, huge numbers, but their offensive lines are so dominant against their conference that it's false, right? But the Senior Bowl, it's not false. We got Kareem Hunt. We have Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, like all these guys that come up, they stand out. So if you're a dynasty football player, you need to be paying attention to the Senior Bowl because there are so many gems to be found. And I know we're going to get into a lot of discussion, but I do. Go ahead.
Two more. David Johnson. I had read about him from Northern Iowa, but I had not seen him. When I saw him at the Senior Bowl practices, then he scored a touchdown. I believe it was in the first quarter of the Senior Bowl game. I was convinced. I had no doubt about David Johnson as a prospect. And then Debo Samuel. If you go back and you read the reports from all those who observed Debo Samuel, people absolutely loved him at the Senior Bowl. He had a very nice career at South Carolina, some nice numbers, but the Gamecocks aren't throwing the ball all over the field. He wasn't, producing that 1,400-yard season like Alabama and LSU prospects. But so many people loved Debo Samuel at the Senior Bowl, and he began to pop, and we now know he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. So Senior Bowl matters. And unfortunately, the opposite can be true. You can find one or two players who you like, and the reports aren't positive, or you hear some bad things about the player. So I got my ear, listen to the Senior Bowl. And coach, one of my dreams is go to the Senior Bowl. The problem is I'm a teacher full time, and it always pops up around midterms and the third marking period, and we switch classes. And I'm going to have to wait till I retire, but that's one of my dreams is to go down to Alabama there in Mobile.
Man, maybe one day. Maybe one day we'll all get down there. But there's a name from last year that is still interesting. Demetric Felton.
Yes.
He had a very big Senior Bowl. So I think, who knows what's going to, it's funny. It's 6 degrees of separation. So it ties back to Kareem Hunt because he's in Cleveland. He's kind of a backup there. There is Ernest Johnson, but who knows what's going to happen with Kareem Hunt there. And maybe there'll be more opportunity for Demetric Felton, even though he took a backseat to Ernest Johnson this year when Chubb and Hunt were out. There might be some opportunity there, somewhere down the road. But John, why don't you tell everybody about your content before we move forward? I know you're working on tons of things and you're always releasing content.
Thanks. So this is the second year my teammate on the Rookie Big Board. If you go to YouTube channel, you can go to Rookie Big Board, type that in. And my teammate, Matt Elliott, and I on the draft seminar, we are literally working on our Senior Bowl preview series. This Sunday, we're recording our quarterbacks, tight end shows. All the quarterbacks and all the tight ends in Mobile, Matt and I have been studying them. We're breaking down the numbers, and we're going to preview those players. Then the following week, we have all the running backs at the Senior Bowl, then followed finally by the wide receivers. So we have 3 Senior Bowl preview shows for all our viewers. Check it out on the Rookie Big Board. And then this will be my 9th year working with footballdiehards.com, doing all of my scholars previews of all the fantasy relevant players in the NFL draft. I mean, I love the NFL and the defensive and offensive linemen. I just don't write about them. I just have more of the fantasy focus.
Man, and one thing I'm grateful for is being a friend of yours and having developed this friendship over the past few years. You message me this stuff as you do it, because it's hard to keep track of, everybody's work and, when you're producing your own work and developing your own work. But you send me this stuff sometimes as you release it, and you kind of know what I'm looking for, and you'll send it to me when you have something like that. So I do really appreciate it, because it pops up and then I check it out and I get caught up. So man, it's been really good following your work.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that enough. I know you love football as much as I do, Coach, so I like sharing with you, my friend.
Excellent. So I want to let everybody know ways you can listen to the show. However you're listening right now, you can also listen on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube, Podbean. We have 2 Facebook groups, Toilets to Titles and When a Family Breaks. On When a Family Breaks, we buy, sell, trade, sports, and memorabilia. We are also on Spotify. If you are watching us on YouTube, be greatly appreciated if you hit the like button, throw us some comments. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Also hit the bell. You'll be alerted every time we go live, and we go live a lot. Joe, you got Joe Knows. You still going 2 times a week right now?
Yeah, that's doing that right now, and I plan on keep on doing that in the off season as well. So just coming up with content, and I don't know, I kind of like to semi-wing it anyway. So I don't like to plan. I'm not too much of a planner. I just kind of like to just go in there and just. But yeah, we have college content coming out, and other NFL content as well. So definitely be doing it 2 times a week.
Yeah, so we'll have tons of content, and you'll be alerted every time we go live. And we got Chris in the chat right now. It's nice to see you, Chris. So it's fun having you guys in here. And I do want to give a big shout out. We just finished our Frankenstein Listener League Year 2. Joe unfortunately lost to the Fantasy Sven of Fantasy Fam at Fantasy Sven. He's the 2021 Toilets to Titles champion, the Frankenstein Listener League champion. So Jernigan won it last year. Fantasy Sven won it this year. And Sven, he went through 3 Toilets to Titles members in the playoffs to win this thing, right? Was it Rich, Nate, and then you, Joe?
I don't recall who he went through. It might have been Rich, but yeah, he ran the gauntlet. I think he had like the number 11 seed, and he ran the gauntlet, man. He didn't have it easy at all. And I had the highest amount of points scored by like 400 or 500 points. Second place was like 400 or 500 points behind.
There's a lot of points scored in this league. Just some context. This league is a monster. If you're unfamiliar with the show, if you're new, it's a league we came up. We wanted it to be like unlike anything. It's vampire style. If you win, you can pick a player from the other team's roster. You have to give them a player back, and huge scoring bonuses. There's like tons of little tweaks, and we do one episode in off season kind of discussing this and revamping it and adding to it. And we went from a 14-team league year one to 3 12-team leagues, and next year we're going to bump it up to 5 12-team leagues, and we're going to try to do 2 of those drafts live in Canton. So we got a lot of things coming down the pipe. But shout out to Sven of the Fantasy Famine. Also, we have a $10 playoff league we are doing right now in my fantasy league. So hit us up. We have unlimited spots. We're at about 62. We're trying to get to at least 100. Payouts are like 60%, 30%, 10% to the top 3 teams. The way it works is you can pick a player once throughout the playoffs. Your starting roster weekly is quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, and 1 linebacker. And again, you can pick a player once throughout the playoffs, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So go check that out. Check out toiletstotitles.com. So guys, before we get into talking about these rookies, I want to give a little bit of a quick recap of how we did in our fantasy leagues this year and anything maybe we learned or some players we really appreciate. So John, you're the guest. So you wrote your notes in there. So quickly, give us a little bit of a recap of how you did.
I had 13 leagues this year. There were 4 dynasty teams, 2 keeper leagues where we have 3 or 4 players, different rules in each one. I got some type of doggy hair in my face. Sorry.
That's from Joe's dog. That's from Melvin.
That would leave 5 redraft leagues that I partook in. 11 of them I made the playoffs in. Very happy with 11 out of 13. Reached 8 championship games. So far, I've won 4 of them. And I actually play in one league that's a 2-quarterback, 6 IDP league. I do like IDP. I only play in 2 of them, but I do play in them. And one's got 11-man IDP. That's just so hard. But I also play in a 6-man IDP. And we have a 2-week championship because it's on ESPN. So if you play ESPN formats, each round of the playoffs is 2 weeks. So I have 1 league left. I'm down by 7. I'm favored by 12, so I could squeak out the victory, but I still have week 18, and that would give me 5 championships this year.
I want you to know that on this chat, there's a sorcerer. We're doing a Dungeons and Dragons thing the week before the Super Bowl. I want to let everybody know out there, we're going to do something fun, a little 2-hour. We got a DM. We're going to do something un-fantasy football related, but it's going to be fantasy football related right now because I'm going to cast a spell, and you're going to win that league.
Thank you. Right? I appreciate that.
The spell cast. All right. How I did, I played in 8 leagues. I made the playoffs in 4, and I won 3 of those 4 leagues that I made the playoffs. And there's one that, I'm sorry, I won 2 of them. I spoke too soon. I did win a 3rd, but I'm up by 0.99 points. And there's stat corrections on Thursdays on my fantasy league. It sounds like there's an echo in here again. I'm not sure if that's from you, Joe, but it's possibly so maybe it's from me, but it's gone. All right. So I'm up by 0.99. So I'm a little nervous to wake up tomorrow because stat corrections are on Thursday. If I win that, though, I won 3 of 4 and I came in second in the other. But Justin,
twice this year, stat corrections beat me. I'm still bitter.
I knew I don't like things that are kind of left open, and I don't like anticipation. So I almost was like, even though I won, so Shane's listening right now, it was Hallam that I was playing against. And I was almost just going to say, let's split the pot just so I don't want to wake up Thursday and find that I lost, but if there's a dynasty pot. And if I win this, it's the first team to win 2 championships in 3 seasons wins the dynasty pot as well. Oh. So I'd risk getting rid of that. You know what I mean? If I split the pot. So I'm going to ride it out and we'll see tomorrow morning. But Justin, come out of the, I think it's called the green room or whatever it is. Why don't you let everybody know how you did in your leagues, man?
Do I have to? Wow. Pretty miserable, man. I had a rough season. Like I had a lot of really great teams that fell apart at the end of the season. A lot of injuries, a lot of COVID stuff. Unable to keep up with the backup COVID players, unlike everyone else. So yeah, I had a pretty. Now I'm getting the echo. This is strange. But
the sorcerer, I should never cast the spell. I'm sorry.
I think the echo is just coming and going. I don't know if it's anyone specific.
Must be
with me first, thing. And then Coach, and then Justin.
Very bizarre, but Justin, go on.
Yeah, so I was in 19 leagues that you actually have to set lineups for. 7 playoff teams. I had 1 second place finish, absolutely no titles. Yeah, and my playoff teams, like I did have a lot of orphans I picked up and a lot of rebuilds, like total rebuilds for Dynasty, as I'm trying to make up as many excuses as possible right now.
You're in too many leagues, and you need to cut. You need to put your focus in a few smaller leagues.
Yeah, I already cut 3 today, and I'm I'm going to cut probably at least 5 more. But yeah, so no titles is kind of embarrassing. But I will say though, I was the number 1 seed in 4 leagues that I lost in the first round that I played. So
Justin, a lot of top seeds
yeah.
lost in the first. It was a tough year to be a top seed.
Yep.
Very tough year.
Yeah, that 1 week, man, between COVID and untimely injuries, it was just and really tough schedules. A lot of the top players played the top defenses that first week of the playoffs, and it just all that bad luck just all kind of hit me at once. And I mean, we all know fantasy football, there's a lot of luck involved, but I set my team up nicely for an opportunity to win it in the playoffs, and then you just hope for the best. That's really all you can do.
Now, I did 1 year in 2019. I did 25 leagues. I never will do it again. I'm down to I cap it at 15. It is insanity when you get like waiver wire Tuesdays are just absolute insanity when you have that many leagues.
Yeah, and for anybody out there watching, just so you know, the leagues that I cut off first are the ones that did waivers immediately after Sunday. Like,
oh my God, those are so hard.
That's not even fair.
I agree. It should be Wednesday night now.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can deal with Tuesday, Wednesday morning, but I prefer the late Wednesday night transaction.
All right, Joe, how'd you do in your leagues, man? You're one of the newest members of Toilets to Titles, and you dove into fantasy this year. So
it's funny. You guys are talking about 12 leagues, 15 leagues, 25, whatever. I remember for me when it used to be 4 leagues was too much. And I was actually in 5 leagues this year, and I actually made the playoffs in 4 of the 5, and I in 2 of them, unfortunately, I did win. I made the championship game in 2 of them. I got second in Frankenstein, which is kind of like the one I wanted to win the most because we had 3 conferences, and it wasn't the biggest payout, but it was whatever, a good payout. But it was 36 teams. It was a gauntlet you had to to kind of get through, and oh geez. And then I actually wound up winning, the money free league, Josh's league. My dog's going nuts. The other 2 leagues I made the playoffs in, I had to make like a 3-game winning streak at the end of the regular season in order to make it in the playoffs. I did. One of those leagues, I felt like I was really strong in position, like I was as good as any other team. And my problem, my dog's going crazy. My problem wasn't COVID. My problem was just players not showing up. When it was time to in the playoffs, just like Alvin Kamara or Gronkowski, Brady, just like I'm going to go on mute, but that's my story this season.
All right. So there it is. All right, everybody, now we're going to start getting into some draft talk, but I do want to let everybody know we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/toilets-to-titles. Tier 1 is $3 a month. It gets you into our group chat on Discord, 24/7 access to everybody in the Toilets to Titles family. Tier 2, also, if you're a Patreon member, you get a free entry into our $10 playoff league. So it's $3 for tier 1. You're already making $7. So that's a win-win. All right. Tier 2 is $5 a month to get you into that chat, get you early access to the waiver wire episodes that we record Monday nights, and we get it out immediately. Justin hammered those out this year. And next year, I think we're going to spread that out through the Toilets Titles crew. And also tier 2, $5 a month, gets you entry into our Frankenstein league. Tier 3, $10 a month, gets you all of that. That entry you get into Frankenstein, though, is free when you have tier 3, and that's $25 value. All right, so all of that stuff is good stuff. Usually we go over the games of the week right now. I'm just going to briefly discuss that. I want to let Justin and Nate, if he's listening, the season total's got to be wrong. There's no way Nate's winning this thing, so he must not have updated it because I smoked both you guys last week. I had Arizona at Dallas. There's a 3-point differential. Nate had Minnesota at Green Bay, which was a 27-point differential. And Justin had Cleveland at Pittsburgh, which is a 14-point differential. So we're going to have to clean up these season totals. Week 18, I have Seahawks at Cardinals. Justin has Chargers at Raiders, and Nate has 49ers at Rams. So it's a tough Week 18. We're going to keep this thing rolling throughout the playoffs into the Super Bowl. We'll find a way to make this game finish at the Super Bowl. Maybe it'll finish the last playoff game, but we'll find a way so we can really ride this challenge out. All right, now it is time for the show. It's time to really get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. So we're going to be discussing some rookies to target. So briefly, when I say briefly, I don't mean briefly as in we're going to get into the player's description briefly. We're just not going to touch on 100 names. We got some names here that are John's favorites. I put in a few, small names here, and I really want John to get into these guys. He also put into some sleeper picks. So again, there's no offseason in Dynasty. This is when we are looking right now. If you're rebuilding and you got all those draft picks, you're ready to roll these names you need to know. If you don't have many high draft picks, these sleeper picks are some names you need to know. So John's going to help us out. So John, why don't we dive into quarterbacks? I'm going to start this with saying quarterbacks are what I watch last. And when I scout rookies, I don't just scout offensive skill position players because I also enjoy the NFL draft. So I look at, safeties, probably my favorite to scout, wide receivers, my second favorite, running backs. But quarterbacks, it's so hard for me to scout quarterbacks. So I probably watch them last. I leave that to the experts. So Joe, I'm sorry, Joe. I'm looking at Joe and I'm saying Joe. But no, John, why don't you discuss these quarterbacks you have listed for us?
It's funny because I do the exact opposite. I start every summer at the quarterback position. It's the one that I like and feel most comfortable with. Now, it's also the hardest. I probably watch more tape of the quarterbacks than any other position. And I still get it wrong at times. But I do feel pretty comfortable. There is a big three in my bucket, and they could still change. I have not necessarily finalized an order. The Senior Bowl is important, but this top three are clearly first-round value in my book right now. Based on my model and based on my game tape study throughout the season. First one we're going to talk about who's hot right now in the draft industry. I'm not as high on him as everyone, but I obviously like him. He's in that bucket. That is Kenny Pickett of the University of Pittsburgh. He obviously wasn't on my radar last August. He had come off 2 so-so seasons at the University of Pittsburgh. He wasn't in like that top level NFL draft buzz. He just hit a grand slam, similar to what Joe Burrow did his last year at LSU. Kenny Pickett has skyrocketed up my draft board more than any other prospect. Similar also last year, that player was Zach Wilson of BYU, who turned out to be the second overall pick in the NFL draft.
It seems like Pickett took the rise that everyone was kind of expecting Carson Strong to take.
Yes, he did. And the reason why I like him much more than Carson Strong, let me give you my favorite stat in this draft. In 31 games played, Carson Strong has minus 305 yards rushing.
Oh.
Let me repeat that. In 31 games, he has minus 305 yards rushing. 0 rushing equity. 0. He cannot scramble. He is a 1987 quarterback in the year 2022, and that's a problem. So, as an example, Sam Howell has over 1,300 yards rushing in 32 games. So over 1,600 more yards rushing than Carson Strong. Even Kenny Pickett has 800 yards and 1 yards rushing. So first thing, if you watch Pickett, very mobile, more mobile than if you have not watched him a lot. If you're not familiar with Kenny Pickett, he is very mobile in the pocket. And what I like about him, he has the one trait that I look for. He keeps his eyes downfield. He runs when he has to move the chains, or everyone's covered, or they're in man coverage and they all have their backs, and it's just an easy 15-yard pickup. Kenny Pickett is mobile in the pocket, but he's keeping his eyes downfield to throw the football. But he's got athletic ability. Now, when I plug Pickett into my model has some concerns. Low completion percentage. He doesn't hit my floor. He doesn't hit the threshold of 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He also doesn't hit my yards per attempt. If you follow me, and as we go along the draft process, I like to have quarterbacks who hit 4 of my 5 key statistics. Kenny Pickett misses on 3 of the biggest ones. But that's over the course of his career, and he definitely improved his last year. He's also played 48 games at quarterback. That's an astronomical amount. He's ready probably to step on the NFL field and play if he has a coach that puts a team around him and doesn't ask him to win the game, just asks him not to turn the ball over and play decent football. As an example, I think he'd be perfect in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. And it's not because he went to the University of Pittsburgh.
It's funny when that works out, right?
What?
It's funny when that works out.
Yeah. I mean, look at Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah.
They need a quarterback. Oh my God. Ben had a great career, 2 Super Bowls. It's been a pleasure watching you on the gridiron, sir. He can't throw the football anymore. I mean, what did he have? 5 yards in attempt last night or something? You can't play football. So Pickett is in the bucket. Number 2, I'm a big Sam Howell fan. And right now, if you ask me to bet on one quarterback, I'm going to say Sam Howell's my guy, but I still got more studying to do. He did come off a bad bowl game. But when I plug Howell into my model, he hits 4 of the 5 benchmarks. And when quarterbacks have hit 4 of the 5 benchmarks, they don't fail. If you know me, Coach, I was a huge Jalen Hurts fan. I have Jalen Hurts on 3 of my 4 dynasty leagues. I drafted him in almost all my redraft leagues this year. Jalen Hurts hit 4 of 5 in my model. I love this tape at Oklahoma. I'm a big, Coach, I've been here champion Jalen Hurts for a long time. He was my number 3 or 4 quarterback coming out of that class. I had a first-round grade on him. He's a great – so Sam Howell, and he's a different quarterback, but he hits all those benchmarks. And I'll tell you what I love. People say he had a bad year. Okay, statistically it was a down year. You know what I love about it? He fought. He lost Javonte Williams.
Right.
Imani Brown. Michael Carter.
Daz Newsome.
A brand new offensive line. Daz Newsome.
Yeah.
And you know what that young man did? He fought. I like my quarterbacks to go through adversity. One of the challenges with Zach Wilson, he had it relatively pretty clean at BYU. He didn't have as much adversity. Sam Howell has gone through a lot. Another reason I like Jalen Hurts is he transferred out of Alabama, lost the job to Tua, ended up sitting a year. I believe he sat behind Kyler Murray for a year. He had to overcome some things, and he kicked the goddamn crap out of the ball at Oklahoma. And he came through adversity, and everyone has told Jalen Hurts he can't do it. And all I ever see is Jalen Hurts winning football games and producing. That's all I know. Every time I see him, he wins and he produces. I don't care what anyone else says. I like that Howell has fought. And when you look at the totality, 37 starts. He came on that campus as a true freshman. Remember, if you don't know, he was going to go to Florida or Florida State. I forget which one. He had committed to Florida State, I believe. At the last second, he's a North Carolina kid. Mac Brown took over the program. He decided to go to North Carolina. He stepped onto that campus, and he was a quarterback, the starting quarterback, day one. He had 37 starts at the University of North Carolina. The young man is ready to play from day one in the NFL. And he's a lot more. I joke about this. People thought Sam Howell wasn't athletic. They didn't watch enough tape. They didn't study him. Well, this year, he had over 800 yards rushing. You know why? The offensive line fell apart. The offense fell apart. You know what Sam Howell did? He took on a tremendous burden to keep those chains moving and to play quarterback and try to win football games. He's much more athletic. I had literally read and seen people last summer who said Sam Howell isn't athletic. Bull. He's very athletic. He might not be as crisp and clean as Kenny Pickett manipulating the pocket. But he's good. He's not as good as Pickett. But I also say this. That Tar Heels offensive line was a disaster. a complete disaster. And hey, look it. You've seen the Giants offensive line, the jailbreak they have in New York. I mean, you look at every young quarterback has to learn how to deal with a jailbreak when the defense comes after you. Sam Howell already learned it. He learned it the hard way. But I like Howell. So Howell, look at the numbers. He's athletic. Now, he's listed at 6'1", 220. Maybe 6 feet. I hope he comes over 6 feet. We'll see. But I mean, that's not the Russell Wilson and Drew Brees were.
You think he's taller than Bryce Young?
That's, I do think so. Bryce Young's pretty short. I think Bryce Young looks like he's 5'11", 6 feet also. So it's very close, very close. But I like Howell. And then I like Matt Corral. Look at.
So does Lane Kiffin.
But you play in the SEC West. 32 career starts. Nice touchdown interception ratio. Doesn't hit my benchmark, but he's close. Very close. He completed 67% of his passes in 32 games. That's pretty impressive in the SEC West, my friends. Here's what I like about Matt Corral. 1,321 yards rushing. This young man is very athletic. And I'm sure our friend Joe there doesn't want to see another pass of a giant stiff quarterback sitting in the pocket getting eaten up by the pass rush. If you can't have a quarterback, and I'm not saying you don't have to go out and be Lamar Jackson, but you've got to be able to run from Micah Parsons. My man, Coach, there's not very many people can run from Micah Parsons. But if you're going to play quarterback in the modern NFL and Micah Parsons is coming after you, you better have a little mobility. You can't be Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning sitting in that pocket. Parsons is going to just eat you up. Matt Corral has mobility. I do think he might have the best arm. Now, Willis is different. When I judge arm strength, I also include accuracy at all levels of the field. Malik Willis might have the best arm. You just whip it and throw it. It's incredible. But you have to hit the short passes, the intermediate passes, everything. Matt Corral might have the best arm. I know NFL teams like SEC quarterbacks. They just do. I mean, if you are a general manager and your family, your daughter's college education, the house you live in is all dependent on finding a quarterback, you're going to go to the SEC most likely. You're going to look. You're going to make sure we have an SEC kid coming out. If I'm going to bank my daughter's college graduation or tuition, I'm probably going to take a kid from the SEC. And when we're in a group like this, 5 very good, interesting quarterbacks, all very close. There's no Trevor Lawrence in this group. There's no Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes. You might bank on the SEC. Those are my top 3. I've not finalized them, but those are clearly my top 3 right now.
All right. Well, who do you have as your wild card? Oh, I'm sorry. Joe, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, sorry. Do the wild card, then I'll bring up my question.
My number 1 wild card is Bailey Zappy. He's fascinating. He's listed at 6'1", 220. If you haven't seen him, he's from the Western Kentucky. He transferred from Houston Baptist University at the FCS level. What happened was his coaching staff at Houston Baptist basically went to Western Kentucky. They took Zappy and his top 3 receivers, and they all moved in. In one season at the FCS level, 69% completion, 62 touchdowns. He broke Joe Burrow's record. Only 11 interceptions, 6'1", 220, 168.8 passing efficiency. He has a role in the NFL. Not sure if he's a lot better than Case Keenum. He might be the type of player who flashes in the right offense at the right time with the right people around him, like Case Keenum did with Minnesota. He did get him to an NFC championship game. Draft Capital is going to tell us what the NFL thinks of Bailey Zappy. I like him. He's interesting. Now, he's going to the Senior Bowl. And to me, that is one of the players I've got to watch more than anything. Look, when you see him at Western Kentucky, that ball, he's zipping it. But those are group of 5 defensive backs. in a wide open passing scheme. I need to see him throwing the ball to elite wide receivers against elite defensive backs, and does
with an elite pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, if I hear good reports and I like the tape, and then I watch him in the game and I see composure, I'm going to be very impressed. And draft capital is going to depend. If Bailey Zapp is a third-round pick, that means an NFL team has some confidence in him. If he's a fifth-round pick, I mean, then we go out the door. Draft capital and Senior Bowl are going to be very important. I do like his tape. And what I've read, he's a very smart young man. He calls audibles and the offensive blocking schemes at Western Kentucky. So I do like this young man. But can he transition to a new offense? He's been in the same scheme for 3 years. How fast can the young man pick up the playbook of a new offense?
Now, is it Zappy or is it Zap?
I thought it was Zappy, but I couldn't.
I never even heard of him.
Oh, wow, yeah, he's the wild card. He is definitely somewhat 62 touchdowns, my friend.
I like the last name.
Oh, it's a great name.
It's a great name. But what do you think of you had mentioned Malik Willis before, and I'm not really high on him myself. It doesn't from what I've read, it's not like I've watched a lot of video on him, a little bit, but just from what I read, it doesn't sound like an accurate quarterback. I mean, athletic, but not accurate. And I honestly, even highlight reels, I really wasn't all that impressed with him. But he's a big name out there with a super potential. What's your feeling on him?
I see the upside. If you could paint a portrait, the upside could be Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's there. Lamar Jackson was a better prospect coming out of Louisville than Malik Willis. My model has some serious red flags on him. One, his passing efficiency is not even close to where I want it.
He couldn't beat out Bo Nix.
And he couldn't, but that's a different story. You're right. But that's something I still can't understand. But that's an interesting story. And then 48-18 touchdown interception ratio isn't that impressive. Only 63% completion percentage. But Joe, what really bothers me with him, because I see the upside, what really bothers me, I don't think he throws well from the pocket. All the great ones, and we've seen Lamar Jackson this year had some challenges when defenses pinned him in and forced him to throw from the pocket and then even throw to the outside hash marks. I don't think he manipulates the pocket. I know I've been talking about that with Pickett and Howell and even Corral. And I'll say this, Joe, you watched Eli Manning. He knew how to control the pocket.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he could move it up, step it up.
He couldn't run for crap, but he knew how to manipulate the pocket. He knew how to slide. Basically slide and glide a little bit.
Yes, Dan Marino had it.
With 2 left feet.
Yeah, when Malik Willis is in the pocket and he's got pressure and he's got to throw the football, it's not pleasant. It's not NFL caliber. So all it takes is one general manager to fall in love with the athletic upside. I get it. So I'm sorry, some coughing here. I see what an NFL team might fall in love with. I have a second round grade. I don't know if I'm the general. Now, it depends how desperate you are, and some teams are really in need of a quarterback. So someone's going to take and probably push him into the first round. I think Jalen Hurts was a much better prospect than Malik Willis. I don't even think it's close. And Jalen Hurts fell around too, which I still can't understand. It is so bizarre that within 3 years, Jalen Hurts shouldn't even. I mean, there were people who had him outside the top 7, at a third round grade. And now they love Malik Willis. And I don't even think it's close. I think Jalen Hurts was a much better prospect coming out than Malik Willis. Can't hear you, Coach.
Coach, you're muted.
Man, I don't know if I've done that before. But there's a first time for everything. But this show has become the Jalen Hurts, man, if you don't have Jalen Hurts shares this offseason, you better get some, because the Gridiron Scholar is on it, and he is the play. He is the play there.
He's a fantasy monster.
Imagine if they get a really good receiver to pair up with Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
Jalen Reagor was going to be a really
Me
good
too.
receiver, to be honest, man. I thought he
Was
going to be.
Reagor out of Baylor? I forgot,
Yeah.
where was he from?
No,
I don't like Baylor
TCU.
wide receivers.
Oh, TCU. He's
Oh,
right.
was it TCU? Okay, same area, actually, same neck of the woods. But yeah, no, okay, yeah, I was never a big Reagor fan. I did like Jalen Hurts coming out of college. I mean, I didn't know how good he could be, but I remember when Philadelphia drafted him. I remember people were like, criticizing it. Like, you got Carson Wentz, but and it was strange, I guess. But at that time, Carson Wentz was kind of like an injury waiting to happen. And I guess they just felt the value was too good when they grabbed him in the second round. And I was like, I didn't have a problem with it. And I was actually happy for the Eagles when they decided to give him a shot as a starting quarterback this year. I thought it was actually the right move. I'm like, this guy's got talent. I didn't know he'd have a rocking year like he had this year, but I thought he was worth a shot.
Listen, you can't be half pregnant. The Eagles, they got Jalen Hurts. They got rid of Carson Wentz. It was so confusing. We didn't know what they were going to do. Just play the guy, give him a shot, and let's see
Worked
what
out
you
for
got.
both teams.
The
Eagles and the Colts worked out for both teams.
All right, let's move on
Nicely.
to running backs. We're running a little long here. I just want to make sure, John, I don't want to keep you too long. I know your time.
Shorten it down.
Well, so I don't want you to give us the John Laub version of this stuff. I'm going to try to keep us on track because, like I said, I know you're a teacher, and I want to make sure you're up and ready to roll for these students tomorrow. I don't want to take you away from them. So let's move on to running backs. So you got Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, and Kenneth Walker. So why don't you take us through these guys, my friend?
So I'm still debating now. In August, my top two Devi and my top two running prospects were Breece Hall and Isaiah Spiller. They're still at the top. Now, Kenneth Walker transferred from Wake Forest to Michigan State, and he basically is the Kenny Pickett of the running backs in this group. What an unbelievable season. I mean, Kenneth Walker was in the running for the Heisman until they lost that game against Purdue. I mean, you could make the argument after the game against Michigan, he was arguably the Heisman favorite at that time. Unfortunately, they lost to Purdue, and he wasn't as rocking down the stretch. Good, very good. He's in my top three bucket. Now, the scrimmage yards percentage. 34% of the Michigan State's offense went through Kenneth Walker. He also had 2,804 yards rushing in college, 5.8 yards per carry. And that includes, I think, was he at 3 or 2 years at Wake Forest? I forget now off the top of my head. So 5.8 is very impressive for this young man. You're going to hear this from me this year. I like my backs big. I like big backs. Kenneth Walker's 5'10", 210. I mean, if he comes to the combine and he's 210, and he keeps that weight on muscle, man. I mean, so I'm going to now call it the Rashad Bateman effect. There's always a chance that someone's smaller and shorter than the team, right? I mean, we thought he was 6'2", and he was much shorter and a bunch lighter. But let's say Kenneth Walker shows up 5'10", 208. Bingo. Even if he shows up, if maybe gets to 215. The size, the power, the vision. He can run inside. He can run outside. Now, Combine's going to determine the final. What is that 40-yard dash? But more importantly, what is the 3-cone drill? I want to see that lateral quickness in short spaces. Because if you have to get through those holes between the tackles in the NFL, they shut like this.
Yeah.
You need vision and lateral quickness, and you need to hit it up the hole. Now, he hits it at the college level, but does he have the elite athletic ability to continue to do that at the NFL level?
Yeah, these next two guys you're talking about are a lot more like Spiller's a lot more twitched up. Like Spiller's got the quick twitch, and Breece Hall has got the vision and he's got the burst, the elusive cuts. So and Kenneth Walker, when I watch him, like one of my notes says, I don't see anything overly explosive with him, but he has the knack, even more so than Spiller and Hall, for the huge monster play. Like I think
that comes from his vision, my friend, Coach. He sees the hole in tight spaces, and he is relentless and gets through it like that. So I don't know if he has the breakaway speed. But in the NFL, if you can find that hole, one of the things, Nick Chubb, I think he's the best in the entire league. In traffic between the tackles, I don't think, maybe Jonathan Taylor.
What the hell were the Browns doing Monday night?
Oh, I'll forget. Look at, man, how they waste Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb he has the greatest 4-yard runs. I just love watching him get 4 yards a carry. It is brilliant what he can do for 4 yards. There's a little bit of that in Kenneth Walker. A little bit where you're like, how did he find that hole? But we know they close faster at the NFL level. Now, so that he's in the bucket. Isaiah Spiller, tough season. Not awful. Didn't hit the expectations or the ceiling. However, Texas A&M had a bunch of good backs. They rotated other people in and out. They lost their quarterback. They actually never really found a quarterback. Then they had an injury at the position. Then they had another turnover. I think they started 3 players. They had no receiver. So the offense never really clicked. Isaiah Spiller was definitely the most consistent every down player. But here's 2 things I like about Isaiah Spiller. 74 career receptions. Isaiah Spiller is good at receiving. He's not Najee Harris. Harris was one of the best backs I've ever saw in college. He was a terrific pass catcher. Spiller's not on that kind of dump off Travis Etienne level where Etienne would just get the quick pass and gone. But if you want a consistent 3-down back who can move the chains and can pass, block, and catch, I like Spiller. Also, coach, 6'1", 215. I like my big backs.
He's big, but he's quick. Like
he's
out of the backfield. I know you said he's not like Etienne, where Etienne would catch those balls and he'd be out. But this guy, if you get the ball in front of him, when he gains momentum into that catch, he is hard to keep up with out of the backfield, man. He has some really quick twitch.
Yeah, I mean, you get him on the edge one-on-one.
Yeah,
Spiller's gone. But there's that dynamic. Like Etienne had some dynamic
track speed. Right.
Spiller's got good traits.
Right.
And I mean, he's going to be a good NFL back, but he doesn't have that, oh my God, once in a while.
It'll be interesting to see where he goes. If he gets a good line, he's a guy who his stock could go through the roof if he lands somewhere that could really utilize him.
Oh, absolutely. And look at 6'1", 215. Second round draft capital.
Yeah. SEC.
Jonathan Taylor fell the second round. Nick Chubb fell to the second round. I think Spiller is a terrific NFL. He'll be better, and coach landing spot will matter. Let me tell you something. If he goes to Dallas, man, that is the perfect player for 1 year. And in 2023, Isaiah Spiller takes over the Dallas backfield.
And I've said it this year. I do think they draft a running back this year.
They should. They should. Because I don't think Tony Pollard is a full 3-down back. He's not. I know people in love with him. He's not. You can't at that weight.
He's a good ball player. He's a good ball player.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Right, but Troy Hambrick was a good ball player when Emmitt Smith was in the backfield. And as soon as we got rid of him, Troy Hambrick stunk. So
yeah, and look how good Darren Sproles was. A great NFL back, but he wasn't a full-time back. Right. Anyways, Spiller, I love. Now, if you put him on scrimmage yards percentage of the offense, 28%, but you have to put it in context. Spiller shared the backfield. The Aggies never gave him the ball. I don't look at that as such a bad thing. Look at what Javonte Williams did when he was in North Carolina with Michael Carter. If you don't know, Texas A&M has a kid, Devin Achane. Ooh, he is Tony Pollard with size and a little more speed. Devin Achane is great. And that's why Spiller didn't get the command like Kenneth Walker did. But I put it in context. Spiller's very good. And Jimbo went very conservative on his play calling. He was going to win games 20-17. Texas A&M played defense, field position, ran the football. They got very comfortable with low-scoring games. So that's why his numbers aren't there necessarily. I still think Breece Hall is the best running back in the class.
Yep.
He's a better prospect than David Montgomery. Completely different back.
I love me some Montgomery, though, man.
So look at, and he's better than Montgomery. I'll tell you what I like about Breece Hall more than Montgomery. When you evaluated Montgomery at Iowa State, he danced around too much.
He had to. His line was absolutely atrocious.
It was no question about it. But that haunted him early in his NFL career.
True.
He's gotten better. He's learned to take the 3 yards and move on. But what I like about Breece Hall, man, he hits the goddamn hole. He does no game there. And Hall kind of knows the difference between bouncing and hitting the hole. I think he has better vision. Now he's also playing behind a better team. So I understand that better offensive line. But Breece Hall, here's one of my favorite stats. 82 career receptions. That is amazing. I don't think people realize how good of a pass catcher Breece Hall is. Now, all 3 of these young men, either pro day, combine, we know a lot of these young men are going to go pro day now, but we need to see the numbers on the 40-yard dash, the 20-yard shuttle, and the 3-cone drill.
Hall trimmed up this year, too. This offseason, they focused on getting him a little more explosive, so he got a little bit leaner. So I think his numbers actually might be more impressive than what we would have expected last year at this time.
Yeah, hey, he's 6'1", 220. These are all big backs. You're going to hear me all season. I like big backs. We got 3 backs.
Justin, we need to find a way to make that a drop, please. John shouting, I like big backs. Go ahead.
They're all over 200 pounds. They're between 5'10" and 6'1". That's size matters at the NFL level. I'm sorry. I love Darren Sproles as much as anyone, but you can't give the man 25 touches a week. His body's not going to hold up to it.
Let's get into the sleeper, because I do want to get into the wide receivers. So tell us about your sleeper. I know Joe's a fan of him. I watched him some today. So let's touch on this cat.
So he's going to be all over the board. I saw your tweet. Someone had him outside the top 20. He's like I have him in the top 12. So that's how high I am on him. Tyler Algier out of BYU. I like my big backs, 5'11", 220, folks. And he punches people. He's
got a chip on his shoulder.
He's a violent downhill runner who likes to hurt people. Athletic ability is going to matter. Is he running a 4.54 or is he running a 4.68? I mean, all the difference in the world. It sounds simplistic, but when you have a group of 5 back at an independent program, I guess maybe Power 5 independent, depending on how you write BYU, the tape is amazing. The usage is amazing. The production is amazing. 6.4 yards a carry, 46 career receptions. He's got everything on film. I like him, but I don't know for sure what the athletic traits are at the end of the day. I've been thinking a lot about this. And remember Jay Ajayi coming out of BYU. I was very high on him.
Boise. Was it Boise State?
Boise. I'm sorry. Boise.
All good.
But I put him in the same. The problem is the degenerative knee eventually his body couldn't hold up. I think they're similar. Let's see where Tyler Algier comes up athletically at his pro day or combine, but he has everything else.
Is he going to be at the Senior Bowl?
I don't think he's not on the list yet.
He was a walk-on at BYU. So they originally brought him on to be a linebacker. So So I'm just saying, so this guy's got a lot to prove, and he runs like it. He reminds me, I put in my notes, it might seem a little crazy because their body style is different, but he kind of reminds me of the way Philip Lindsay ran at Colorado. Very, very explosive, but they just run like Philip Lindsay. If you put his work ethic and his speed and his attributes into a bigger body, I feel like that's what I see when I watch Tyler Algier.
I'm not against that. I think people are underappreciating toughness and the ability to grind it out between the tackles. Mm-hmm. And he looks like a Bill Belichick running back. He does to me. Like, I just think Belichick's going to like this guy because he's tough.
Who was
And
that
he
running
hit-
back at Fresno State? I see some of him too. The big, strong one. I think he went to the Chargers. Ryan Matthews, was it?
Oh, Ryan Matthews.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see a little bit of him in there too. So there's a few comps I have. Joe, you're a fan of Algier. You got anything to say about him before we move on to wide receivers?
Not about Algier, but yeah, I love big physical backs. To me, that's real football.
Yeah.
I've got a place in my heart too for the the flashier guys, the speedier guys. But I like physical backs myself. Like Derrick Henry is probably my favorite
Randy
running
Jacobs,
back today.
man.
Well, absolutely. Even Ahmad Bradshaw was for a smaller guy, the guy was, they called him Mighty Mouse for a reason. He was physical too. Even though a lot smaller. What do you think about, talking about big physical, Brian Robinson Jr.?
So he's going to be my biggest conundrum, because when you look at the late breakout age, but part of it is because he's on the bench at Alabama. And look, he was behind Harris and he was behind Damian Harris, the two, Najee Harris and Damian Harris. So I understand why he didn't get on the field. But then he plays in an offense with Bryce Young and explosive wide receivers and a good offensive line. I don't think it's the best Alabama offensive line in the last decade, but it's still very good. So he does have a lot of big lanes. I have him in my top 12. I got to study him more because he doesn't pop. Like, I've never sat there and said, oh my God, he's clearly an NFL back. Now, I do know the NFL is going to like him more than I do. There's no question in my mind, because they're going to like the big back, Alabama, SEC. Someone's going to like him. Yeah. Hey, that's why Ramondre Stevenson ended up and why he's been good. They like those big type of backs.
All right, excellent. So let's move on to wide receivers here. So you got your top 3 wide receivers. I'm loving some Treylon Burks. I see that Drake London was a guy that I was a little nervous about this offseason because of, seeing some bigger wide receivers over the past few years with high expectations kind of drop. But it seems his stock is actually doing the opposite. It is rising.
He's gone way
yeah.
up.
So why don't you discuss these 3 wide receivers you have?
Well, since you started on Drake London, I've been on Drake London for 3 years. I think my teammate Matt at the rookie bid board thought I was drinking, because I was like, man, I like Drake London a lot. And I know people were kind of like he was outside top. I had him in the top 10 Devy wide receivers last summer. And I got it. He played a lot of slot, and he didn't run a very diverse route tree, and he didn't have a lot of separation. But you know what they did this year? They moved him out of the slot. He ran a diverse route tree, and they peppered the man with targets. He was getting 15 targets a game. Hey, he's 6'5", 210. You can line him at the X. You can line him up in the slot. You can put him at the Y. He can run any route right now for you. Now, is he going to get elite separation like Devonta Smith? No, he's not a Devonta Smith. Where does Drake London win? He wins with size and physicality. You throw him quick slants. You put him in the middle of the field behind cover 2. You can even have him attack the cover 3. He can go to the boundary. He's a great red zone threat. I'm all in on Drake London. Right now he's in the bucket with the top 3. And it's amazing to see people. And I got the criticism. But sometimes you have to you have to think a little bit. I learned this from Josh Allen, was my biggest whiff. When you put Josh Allen in the numbers in my model, he looked pedestrian. And I thought he was inaccurate. But, look at what he's done. So when I was looking at Drake London 2 years ago, I was like, boy, this young man can grow. He's a basketball player. He's a powered forward. He's a leaper. He's physically dominant. But at USC, guess who they had? They had Amon-Ra St. Brown. So guess what they did? They put Amon St. Brown on the outside, Drake London in the slot, and said, good luck. Try to cover these 2 guys, right? I mean, come on, think about it. They had Drake London and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's amazing that they didn't do better at USC.
Man, were they all together with Michael Pittman?
They were, but St. Brown was a freshman. And
still, but how did they? Man, I don't
It's
know
crazy.
what's up at USC, man.
Hey, they have
Yeah.
Juju Smith-Schuster. They have wide
Like
receiver.
It's like
Go
wide
ahead.
receiver university, West Coast, like LSU is like
Yeah.
in the Southeast.
Yeah, they're not as good overall, but they're good. I mean,
Yeah, they're really good.
Well, they just got Lincoln Riley, right?
yeah.
So-
I'm very excited for this USC offense now.
College football is better. So I love the SEC. I see people
Of course.
complaining about, Georgia's playing Bama. They're getting all the talent. Shut up. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody plays the game. They just know how to play it better. And what I mean by not the actual football game, the game of recruiting. And, everybody's paying. Everybody's cheating. And they're just doing it better. But college football is better when USC, Texas, like those schools are good. We need them back.
Yes.
And I'm excited about
agree.
that kid who transferred to Texas. The quarterback who was originally supposed to go to Ohio State, Grant Mert. What's his name? You probably know what I'm talking about, John. Kid with the mullet.
Ears.
Ayers. Yep.
Ayers.
Yeah.
Yes, the quarterback.
So him going to Texas is huge, and Lincoln
Quentin
Riley
Ayers,
going
I
to
think.
USC, huge. Big move.
Yep. So I'm all in. And here's what's amazing with Drake London. 71% catch rate. And they went through 2 quarterbacks this year at USC. Team aerial dominator, 30%. This young man can play. Also, let's put it in context. If you look at yards per reception, Drake London's at 13.5. But you have to understand the first 2 years at USC, he was the short area slot receiver, and no one could cover him. There wasn't a slot cornerback in the Pac-12. So he would just get these 7-yard passes for a first down, and he would be tackled. He doesn't have the greatest yak. He's not a yak monster. But, he's obviously, this year, if you watch the USC film, he can get open deep because they ran him on deep routes. Early in his career, they didn't run too many deep routes, once in a while, but not often. So you have to put like yards per reception in context to understand Drake London. This is why watching film matters. I like numbers, but I also like film because I know Drake London grew during his 3 years at USC. And teammate context, Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, the young man was in a good locker room. So I'm all in on Drake London, 6'5", 210. You can't coach it. You can't just make someone up to be 6'5". Now, I'd like to see a short area burst. That 20-yard shuttle is going to be important to me. But I'll say this, because he played basketball, he has good feet. He has good feet. Better feet for a 6'5" player than you would think because of that basketball background. So I think the skills are there. Let's see what he does at the Combine/Pro Day. I'm just going to go right to the top.
Let's go.
I don't understand what people don't see in Treylon Burks. I don't get it. I don't get why the world...
Dude, he's a dude.
Dude, I do not understand why people aren't talking about this young man more. I saw someone rate him outside the top 6 wide receivers. Okay, please, you don't think he's the top? I can deal with that. If he's not in your top 3, you need to watch more film or do something with your model. Because on everything this man did, when I look, 16.4 yards per reception. Holy shoot. My friends, he played at Arkansas. Felipe Franks was throwing him the football his first. Let me repeat that. Felipe Franks is throwing the football to him the first 2 years. Let me repeat that. Felipe Franks is throwing him the football. He has 16.4 yards per reception. This year, KJ Jefferson is a sophomore, first year playing quarterback. And he still averaged a boatload. Now, he's a yak monster. Treylon Burks, man, if you don't bring him down with that first defensive back, goodbye.
There's a chance Philly pairs him with,
he'd be the perfect guy with Devonta Smith, dude.
Right?
Dude, because you could put Devonta Smith in the slot and put Treylon Burks outside in the X.
Yep.
Hello, who the hell are you going to cover?
Dangerous.
Who the hell are you going to cover on that side? Anyways, hey, can't coach size. 6'3", 225. 6'3", 225. If he runs a 4.5, anywhere, and he might run a 4.4. If he does that at 6'3", 225, see you later, folks.
Yeah.
Now, the game, and I don't like to necessarily use the best game, but watch Treylon Burks versus Alabama. My friends, I waited for a month to see that game because Saban and that coaching staff basically put a Treylon Burks uniform in the defensive meeting room and said, gentlemen, we have one goal, and that goal is to stop this man. Everything we do on every play is to stop Treylon Burks. And you know what? He ate him up. They couldn't stop him. He is SEC West. The numbers are silly. 41% aerial dominator rating. Everyone had to stop him. Everyone in the SEC said, we have one guy to stop, Treylon Burks, and no one could do it.
Yeah.
No one could do it.
And like you said, teams love SEC quarterbacks. SEC wide receivers, come on.
Dude, if he goes number one at wide receiver, I'm not going to be surprised.
Now, somebody will try to get cute. It happens every year. Somebody tries to get cute, get a guy, reach for a wide receiver. He's going to fall into somebody's lap, and we're all going to say, how the hell did you let
how the hell did he go
to this roster?
Here's my favorite. He had a 72% catch rate. That's unbelievable. He is big. He is fast. He's explosive. Now,
he's underrated too, I think.
He is. Sure. I'll admit he's not, and you're never going to draw him up to run routes like Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy at Alabama, I thought was as good as any route runner I've ever studied.
As a freshman, coming out of high school, in the spring game, he was
always
routing DBs up, like DBs who were savvy veterans. He was cooking in the spring game straight out of high school. So yeah,
hey, he's still cooking him in the NFL. They just can't get him the football.
Oh my God, get a quarterback to Denver, please.
But here, Treylon Burks doesn't win with route running. He wins with size and speed. He's just going to kill you. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong. Get him one-on-one 20 yards down the field. And you know what you do? Throw him the football. It's not rocket science. Mm-hmm. I mean, now, will he have a 12-year career? I just don't think these big body speed guys, their bodies just go out on them like we've seen with Julio Jones, A.J. Green. I think he's A.J. Green and Julio Jones. That's that. I mean, different player.
Josh Gordon, a little Josh Gordon.
Yeah, a little, yeah. But I mean, a big, physical, dominant wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is he going to get 7-yard separation or zig and zag? No. Hey, run the post, run the deep, go to the out, and just beat people. That's what he does. I mean, it's beautiful. Love Treylon Burks. And I am a huge Garrett Wilson guy. I've been on Team Garrett Wilson. I had him ranked over Olave. People thought I was crazy. I was like, nope, I think Garrett Wilson is better than Olave. Unfortunately for Olave, he probably should have gone in the NFL draft last year. He made a mistake because I think he's fallen. He might be a second-round pick. We'll see. But I have a first-round grade on Garrett Wilson. His route running, Garrett Wilson is the technician. He is the technician. He has Amon-Ra St. Brown size, 6 feet, 188. He's not the physically imposing player, but 6 feet with long arms and literally a technician of running the football. Brilliant wide receiver. Now, if you bring him in and you say you're going to be my X and sit out there on the boundary all day long, it might take him some time. But if you can get him in a wide receiver room like Jamar Chase did with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, right, in a duo or in a trio where he doesn't have to necessarily be the alpha male from day one. I mean, I think one of the problems with Devonta Smith is he's the guy.
Right.
He needs someone else around him. I love Garrett Wilson. I mean, 68% catch percentage. Now, here's what's interesting. He's had unbelievable quarterbacks, right? So you're like, oh, let's see. Who's more impressive? Treylon Burks with KJ Jefferson and Felipe Franks, or is it Garrett Wilson with Justin Fields and CJ Stroud? I'm like, Burks is pretty goddamn impressive. And Ohio State has a master of throwing the football all over the field. So that's another thing. Like, Treylon Burks has even more room for growth. I mean, I don't know where – I think Wilson comes in as a ready-made prospect, kind of like Jerry Jeudy at Alabama. Bring him in, starts from day one. With the right quarterback, get him the football, he's going to be highly productive. Can he be Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson? I don't think he has that ceiling. Can he be 1,100 yards right away? Absolutely. Love Garrett Wilson. I mean, honestly, he'd be perfect in Minnesota if they can keep Kirk Cousins. Adam Thielen's getting a little old under the tooth. We've had some injuries now, right? You put Garrett Wilson with Justin Jefferson where they're not asking him to be the man. To the moon. Like, that's the type of landing spot.
Or Washington. With another Ohio State wide receiver. With Terry McLaurin, go get yourself a quarterback.
Yes. Yes. So I'm a big Garrett Wilson. Those are my big three. Now, I didn't put this down, but Jameson Williams, the young man we're going to see on Monday night from Alabama.
Former Ohio State wide receiver.
Another one. Yeah. But right here, he's number 4. I've got to study these 4 in more detail. Williamson is I think the NFL is going to like Jameis Williams more than I do. And I like him. But they're going to fall in love with if his speed is a 4.33, forget about it. Right. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL.
So Nate's in here. What's up, Nate? Our other co-host, he says, give me Chris Olave. He wants him in Green Bay. He's a big Packers fan. But all right, why don't you discuss your sleeper wide receiver out of the University of Kentucky who just declared? So he's all set.
When you asked me, Coach asked me for this about a week ago, and I kind of felt Wan'Dale Robinson would declare.
He hit you up on the celly. He hit you up on the celly and said it's okay to talk about me, John.
When I plugged his numbers into my model, I love what he did at Kentucky. He transferred from Nebraska. What Nebraska did with this young man is a crime. Because he goes from Nebraska, where he should have been dominating the Big Ten, and he was just good, not great, good. Kentucky gets a hold of him in the SEC, and Kentucky unleashes a PPR machine. I mean, this kid was a star this year. So then when you balance out his career numbers, 185 career catches, 72% catch rate, and I dare anyone to name a Nebraska or Kentucky quarterback in the last 3 years. Team aerial dominator this year for Kentucky, 45%. He's 5'11", 185. He reminds me of Jalen Waddle. He does remind me of Jalen Waddle. Now, the red flag, 11.2 yards per reception. But let's put it in context. Nebraska doesn't know how to throw the football. They just don't know what they're doing out there. They lined them up in the backfield. They moved them around. They threw short dump passes. Kentucky started to have them throw a little bit deeper down. I saw that now. It took me a second. It took a little while for them to figure out how to use him, but he might go in the second round. I would not be surprised because they're going to like the SEC. They're going to love what he did moving from Nebraska to Kentucky. And boy, you watch the Kentucky tape, my friends, he's special at times.
So there's a wide receiver that was a huge name. He was probably Kayshon Boutte, the way he was last year. George Pickens was 2 years ago. And here's a guy. So Justin knows I talked the Micah Parsons pick into existence for Dallas. I started talking about that 2 years ago. So the proof is there. It's on the film. But this cat, especially with Gallup hurt and Gallup out, if Pickens can slide to like the 3rd or 4th, I would love to get him to fill him in with that wide receiver room. But what are your thoughts on George Pickens?
So my whole thing, I was impressed that he got on the field against Michigan, and I think he played in the SEC championship game. So my whole story with Pickens was his injury history. To me,
right? ACL in March.
Yeah. It's going to depend on the medical reports coming out of his pro day or the combine. Yes. Is the athletic ability there, the size, the speed, everything you want. However, he did play at a very uninteresting passing game at Georgia. So you don't have a lot of tape that you can be impressed with. The injury is a factor. So I have him in the top 12 right now. And are we 100% sure he declared? I don't think he's declared yet.
Oh man,
So,
he didn't hit me up on the Selly, so I'm not 100% sure. Let me check.
but I do like him. So he's one of those guys who's
I feel like with the injury, he would kind of, don't you think he'd want to cash out? George Pickens.
Well,
All right, I'm gonna have to look it up.
Is it better to cash out or is it better to improve your draft?
True.
I don't know yet. I know it's if someone told him he's a guaranteed first round pick, I could understand him leaving. I would not have a first round grade because of the injury concern right now.
Well, he's still got another day. He's got the national championship game, right? So, maybe he's waiting until after that. So there's another guy. Justin Ross is another wide receiver who had huge ceiling, and then he tore his ACL, and I don't know if he had a leg injury.
No, he had a vertebrae.
It was his neck. Oh, so something. I knew it was something major. And
Justin Ross.
Nobody thought he was going to come back from that.
I know.
They didn't think he would even play again. And the fact he came back, so he's another sleeper. But I want to move on to tight end so we can wrap this thing up. You got two names in here, and then I have a little bit of a sleeper, a guy that I really like. Reminds me of Delaney Walker. But let me. Why don't you tell us about your two tight ends here, John?
My two tight ends, I think, could sneak. One of them will probably sneak into the first round. I don't know if both of them will. I love Trey McBride of Colorado State, man. 6'4", but what's impressive for a group of 5 tight end, he's 260. You don't get a group of 5 tight end at 6'4", 260. Extremely athletic. I mean, the numbers he did, like those high school spark things, or they do like high school assessments. He was off the charts as an athlete. So I love him. As a tight end, he had a 37% dominator rating at Colorado State as a tight end. That's crazy. Like, he just dominated that. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, he's a complete tight end, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he can block.
I know John, Coach Sheps, he loves on the defensive side of the ball, big fan of the safety position. I am too. And it's because of the versatility required to be a really, really good safety in the NFL.
Yeah, it's hard.
And on the offensive side of the ball, tight end is one of my favorite positions. I think underappreciated in many ways, but it's really difficult to find like a real all-encompassing tight end who not just a receiving threat, but is a pass blocker and a run blocker. It's not easy to find. And when you can find that true tight end, in my opinion, that is a first-round pick. I don't know necessarily how high, but they're worth a first round pick.
He had 160 career receptions, averaged 12.5 yards a catch, which is nice for a tight end. I'd like it over 13, but I'm okay with, in context, Colorado State, not a very sophisticated passing game. I'm all right with the 12.5. Senior Bowl, I can't wait to see him because you know what? On film, he's a little nasty of a blocker. He does have that little mean streak in him. Now, how's he going to do at the higher level of competition? That's what's going to matter. Is he still going to be as nasty and mean when he's against some SEC defensive ends or linebackers?
Is Hutchinson going to be there at the Senior Bowl? I'd love to see him go. Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end from Michigan.
Oh, I have not checked up on the
I'd love to see that, man. I'd love to see that matchup at the Senior Bowl. Them two going at it.
I don't think he needs to go. I'd love to see him at the Senior Bowl.
Like he wants to go above. If he wants to go above Thibodeau.
No, I don't think he's. He's
considering it. I think he's considering it. That's what I'm seeing. But we'll see. But I think if he's trying to pass Kayvon Thibodeau as the number 1 overall pick, it's a good place to do it.
Yes. And then the other tight end is Jalen Wydenmeyer out of Texas A&M. If you look at the numbers, he's not going to pop. I mean, we've talked a little bit about Spiller and how Jimbo hurt Spiller's numbers. Well, when you look at the quarterback play at Texas A&M, and then you have the coaching at Texas A&M, unfortunately, Wydenmeyer's numbers are not going to pop. But if you watch as much tape as I have, and Wydenmeyer was my preseason number 1 Devy tight end. But he's fallen behind McBride right now. But that could still switch. I mean, if Wydenmeyer hits the grand slam on athletic ability, I mean, if he does something crazy at his pro day, I already know the NFL scouts are going to look at SEC tight end, incredibly athletic. He's open all the time. The quarterback couldn't get him the ball. I mean, he's big. When you talk about the safeties, like these are SEC safeties, and you see Wydenmeyer, he like towers over SEC safeties. I mean, he is just all man, everything you want. But when you look in the production model, we got to put it in context. This was not a very explosive or interesting Aggies offense. So the numbers aren't going to pop. You have to watch the tape, and we have to see the athletic ability. But I love Jalen Wydenmeyer.
All right, so my guy, this is one of my favorite guys from this class, and that's Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina, and he's going to be at the Senior Bowl. So I'm really excited to see how he plays there, man, against top competition, because he reminds me of Delanie Walker. I see a lot of Delanie Walker in his game, and that's a guy who could step in and be a target hog, at the tight end position. What are your thoughts on Isaiah Likely?
I have him 6'4", 240. The difference between McBride and him is the difference of their inline blocking skills.
Right.
I really think Likely is more that Evan Ingram out wide motion H-back. You would
fantasy football.
Yeah. You probably have to have a blocking tight end on the roster if you're going to go too tight in the red zone. But Isaiah Likely would be your guy who you run to the corner. You try to sneak to the center to throw the ball on play action passes. But he's what do you call it? A shield blocker, right? He's going to put his body in front of the guy, but he's not going to get down and dirty on him.
But he's like that H-back, kind of like remember Chris Cooley, like Delanie Walker was an H-back. Chris Cooley was an H, like those guys who are offset, behind the tackle, out wide. They put him in motion so they get a running start, and then they can get the block on the edge. They're not just going to put their finger in the dirt. But for fantasy purposes, I think he's a name to know.
I'll tell you one thing I like about him. If you watch some tape, he can be lined up as a tight end, and he can attack you 20 yards down the field on the outside of the hash mark. He's got that athletic ability, and that is a great trait in a tight end. Evan Ingram, I don't know what's happened because he had a good rookie season, comes out, he was high first-round pick, falling off the map. But Isaiah Likely does remind me of that type of player. Very athletic, very good in the passing game.
Man, I got googly eyes for tight ends who could run like that, man. All right, John, this has been a very excellent episode. This is the first episode of our off-season number 3, and what a way to start. Talk about some prospects. There's some people who've been thinking about prospects all season. There's some people who are just starting, and there's some people who have yet to start. So however and whenever you're listening to this, hopefully this helps you. This gets you ready for that Senior Bowl, for the NFL draft, for those dynasty rookie drafts, or even in August, if you're just doing redraft and you're trying to look at these rookies. Hopefully this episode helps you out. John, I really appreciate your time, man, and I know we're going to be getting you back on at some point soon, maybe even to do a rookie mock, because we did a bunch of those last year and you joined us, man, so I appreciated that. So, John, why don't you plug your stuff again before we let you go?
Hey, Coach, thank you for having me on. I love coming on. I think this is like the 7th or 8th time I've been with you throughout this process. Absolutely love it. You're the first one who invited me on this year to talk rookie, so I'm all excited about that. But
I got with you a few weeks ago too, so I knew it was coming. I was like, hey, off season's right around the corner. I got to lock you in, man.
And right now I'm working my partner at the Rookie Big Board, our draft seminar show. We're coming out with this Sunday. We are previewing all the quarterbacks and all the tight ends who are at mobile coming up in 21 days from today. Then following that, we record a running back show of all the Senior Bowl participants. And then finally, we do a wide receiver show. So in the next 3 weeks, we're going to break down all 4 positions of the Senior Bowl participants to get our viewers ready. And then we take about 2 weeks, and then we get ready with our draft draft seminar series coming up. Hopefully 4 or 5 prospects every week for about, what does it take us? About 10 or 11 weeks to do all 44, 48 players.
Dang. Man, that's good stuff. Joe, go ahead, man.
One last question, John. I was just curious, and real quick, going back to the wide receivers, because I think it's really intriguing wide receiver class.
Yeah.
If you were building a team, an NFL team from scratch, and you could pick any one of those wide receivers, which one would you take?
Oh, Treylon Burks right now.
Oh, Burks. Yeah, I had a feeling Burks was your number one. I couldn't tell if it was Burks or if it was Drake. I wasn't sure, but yeah, so it was Burks, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ceiling is Julio
Yeah.
Jones and AJ Green. London could be very
Wow.
good, but if you
Yep.
ask me to bet on the ceiling, it's Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
I just saw Justin's eyebrows go up, so he's noting that for rookie drafts. Justin's like, all right, I am taking Treylon Burks wherever I can. I'm penciling it now. All right. Is that confirmed, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty high praise, and coming from John Laub, that's noteworthy. So definitely jot that name down if you haven't already.
Yeah, and you know, the film tells one story about Burks, and you can see his physical dominance. But when you plug the numbers in, he is so much better than people are getting. I mean, he just dominated Arkansas. Let me repeat, at Arkansas. This isn't LSU, Alabama throwing the football. This is Arkansas. His numbers are
Felipe
ridiculous.
Franks.
Yeah, I mean, ridiculously silly, folks.
Man. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. I said all that already. I want to let everybody know, reach out to me at Toilets to Titles or at Coach Sheps if you want to join our playoff league. It's $10. We got the payment on League Safe. The league's on myfantasyleague.com. We're starting week 1 of the playoffs. It's going to be very fun. We're trying to get at least 100 people in there, so we would love to play with you. We will see you all next week. And Joe is going to be seeing you guys Sunday morning for Joe Knows to get you ready for week 18. And Justin will probably see you right after that for the Blitz.
That's right,
where we're
baby.
also getting, I mean, we're not playing. Some people are still playing fantasy right now. We're doing DFS and all that stuff. So is the Blitz still going, Justin?
I'm not 100% certain. I thought that this past week was the last week.
Oh, okay.
But,
so you'll definitely see Joe. Maybe not Justin.
Yeah, I'm down for it if the guys decide to.
All right, guys. So everybody, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the last week of the NFL season. And then we'll see you in the playoffs.
Yep.
Take care.
Take care, all.